Hello, and welcome to another Save Your Sanity live stream. I'm excited to bring you guests that I've previously had on my two podcasts, Emotional Savvy and Save Your Sanity. There's over 100 episodes of Emotional Savvy for you to enjoy, and I don't do any more. I'm not adding to that. But my guest today is Dr. Marni Feuerman, and she has been my guest on Emotional Savvy. So I hope you'll go to emotionalsavvy.com and go and find that when you find out how much she has to share. And you can see that we are discussing today dating, breadcrumbing, and ghosting in COVID times. And the reason that I chose that particular title is because it echoes the title of her book, Ghosted and Breadcrumbed. And the subtitle is Stop Falling for Unavailable Men and Get Smart About Healthy Relationships. So there you go. So we're going to talk about that today. If you have questions, please put them in the comments. You're very welcome. Sometimes when I just do a Save Your Sanity podcast live, I don't get to the questions, but we certainly do that in the Facebook Live. And so you're going to want to just feel free. And we will stop and we will answer the questions. And we're excited about that. And if you want to know more, go to drmarnionline.com. You can find her book there. You can find out all about her and how to have a chat with her. And of course, you can always find me at For Relationship Help. And that's what I offer. So that's what it's called. So I'm so glad to have you on Facebook Live and YouTube today, Marni. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I mean, we have these words that we're hearing more and more, and you were a pioneer in writing a book about these words, but let's just start with telling everybody, what does it actually mean, right? What does it actually mean when somebody's ghosted?
I get that question a lot, and I know it's a term that has become familiar to a lot of people, and I'm seeing it not just in the dating realm, but businesses and otherwise. And so when someone's ghosted, that's when someone disappears on you without explanation. Poof, they vanish. It really leaves the person feeling a sense of uncertainty, ambiguity. There's a lot of loose ends. They don't know what happened. Our brains don't really do well with that. We kind of like an explanation. We don't want people to be in our lives one moment, even if it's briefly, even if it's one date. But even after maybe a few weeks of a relationship or a few months, and somebody just, they drop off the face of the earth and they stop contact. And so that's some of these terms have come out of just online dating culture, because I think people do it more and more. It's almost as if there's difficulties with effective communication, or there's a lack of empathy, or whatever it is. And so when people get ghosted, it really doesn't feel good. And something I like people to know, though, is to not go right to blaming themselves, because that's what tends to happen, especially which I'm sure, with the women that you speak with, men too, for that matter. But what people tend to do is they want to blame themselves or think something's wrong with them. And so I really want people to not make that sort of the first go-to explanation. You don't have a real explanation, and it's unfortunate that people ghost. It's unfortunate that it happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so much to talk about in there because, first of all, I mean, that was a very rare thing 20 years ago that somebody just disappeared from your life. You kind of knew that they had big problems that they did that. But now it's much more common, much more prevalent in this much more digital age, where people don't get the same sense of connectivity, I don't think. And so they don't feel the movement toward attachment in the same way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think people remain more anonymous. So if they haven't, especially if they haven't met you, you're just an image. You're an image on an online dating site with a little bit of a description, or maybe they've texted you. So there's such a small amount of emotional investment So they feel that they can do that to somebody and get away with it and not think twice about it. And I think you're right. Long ago, there was much less of this. If you went on a date or you wanted to get to know somebody, and certainly even when I was, way back when I was dating, you had to speak with them on the phone at the very least. You had several conversations. You usually met with the person relatively quickly. So you met with them face to face. A lot of times you were set up with them by friends, by people who know you, by people who know them. So people weren't as likely to behave badly. But yes, because of the online dating culture, I think people seem to think they're going to get a free pass to treat people poorly. But it's a sad state of affairs, in my opinion, that that's happening.
Well, I think it certainly is. And if we go back to those earlier times where someone maybe suggested we date or set us up and introduced us or whatever, there's kind of a natural reporting out that happens to those people. Look, what did you do? How did you like it? If you
Yes.
went to them and said, oh, I'm just never going to speak to that person again, they would be offended that they'd gone to the trouble of setting you up and now you're treating that person in that way. There would have been face-to-face immediate consequences that had an emotional attachment. Now, it's, as you say, it's so anonymous for many people. And just an aside, talking about hijackals, which is what Save Your Sanity is all about. Little secret, folks. Online dating is a phenomenal place for hijackals to find you. They are lazy by nature, and you are just waiting to have someone use terms of endearment on you, and they know that. So they're going to slip right in there, say a few things, promise a few things. Oh, I read your profile and I just couldn't believe I'd found my soulmate. And pretty soon you're going to be, my soulmate has shown up. You're going to be defending this person to other humans. Oh, the whole thing that I talk about so much. So, little secret between us girls here today, that happens a lot. So be prepared, that's important. And in this whole anonymous kind of dating, you don't even know if that's their real picture, their real facts, their real name, their age or their weight or their height, right?
Or if they have what they say they have in terms of their private parts.
Yeah, TMI.
I was going to use
TMI,
the language,
right?
but I thought, no, I'm not going to go there. But yes, you don't even
Well,
know the gender that you're looking for.
Yeah, how many pictures do you see? Women looking for men. Well, the man's shirt off in front of his car. Does he own that shirt? Did he body shop or Photoshop the body? I mean, what's going on? You have to come with a sense of humor and a skeptical approach. Maybe yes, maybe no. We'll have some fun. We'll find out. We will definitely not be putting on our rose-colored glasses, because when we put on our rose-colored glasses, we miss these. And it's very important in the dating world that you whip off those rose-colored glasses so you can see the red flags, and then hopefully you're wise enough to pay attention to them. So that's on the toxic side. Maybe on the other side, they're just unavailable men. That's what you talk about in your book. How do you spot an unavailable man? Every woman listening wants to know.
Well, the low investment, I think, is the right word too. If there should be a natural progression when you are meeting somebody, and that could mean meeting them online. So your first initial contact, it should grow naturally from there, where they're investing a little more time and effort. And I don't like people to waste too much time with just the back and forth texting. So it should sort of graduate to a phone call, graduate to a quick meeting, a date, maybe even a video call, something like that relatively quickly. If somebody is avoidant or unavailable, they're not going to be doing those things. Or they're just, their words don't line up with their actions. So they are perhaps using a lot of flattery and saying all the right things, but when it comes down to it, eventually you can tell they're not in it to have a real relationship, or really they're not really looking for connection and intimacy and commitment. And so you should be able to find that out relatively quickly.
And they use ambiguous language, don't they, Marnie? Like, oh, well, maybe one day we could do that. Or I'll call you sometime.
Yes.
And this, watch always for ambiguous language when you're online dating.
And
They're
inconsistency. Yeah.
yeah, and they're kind of allowing you to decide what it means, and they know that you're going to put the best spin on it. We just got a comment from a listener, Joanne. She said, "I ghosted my first boyfriend in 1978 when I was 16." I guess she didn't have the language for it, but she definitely dropped him like a hot potato, it seems. But you know, when you're dating people online, notice this language thing. People process in two very different ways, and of course everything in between, but two very different ways. Some people are very precise and structured with their language. Some other people are quite figurative with their language, so they use things like sometime and maybe one day, and that would be lovely to do that. And they have you filling in the blanks for them. And emotionally unavailable men, because that's what we're talking about here, they're really good at that. Give you a little bit of hope, a little bit of encouragement. And then if you say, but you said we could do that, they'll say, no, I said we might do that someday.
Yes, they're very vague. And they speak more as, like you said, it's very ambiguous. There's no solid plan. Their words don't line up with their actions. I also tell people, if you're getting mixed signals or mixed messages, those are bad messages. You don't want to read into those as positive. You want to read into those as someone is purposely trying to keep me off balance, or be avoidant or be unavailable. They're pretty much telling you that by sending those mixed messages.
Yes, and our person online says ambiguity is the calling card of players.
Yes, I like
Yeah,
that.
that's a very good insight. Thanks for
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, and so start to calibrate language. Instead of leaning in and like, how do you like me so far? How's this going? You want to date me? Huh? You know, step back a little bit and say, what can I learn about what's coming across here on the screen? And don't be so anxious to please. Be equally balanced in your approach to saying, is this pleasing to me? And often, you know, we women, because we're talking about the male-female dichotomy here, and we're talking about unavailable and emotionally unavailable men. So we're kind of gender specific today, but emotionally unavailable men understand that we are hardwired to nurture. They have, whether they understand it in words, they understand it somehow without words. That we will nurture, we will take care of, we will lean in, we will want to make excuses for, rationalize, do whatever, give the poor boy a chance. Maybe he's upset. Maybe he's having a hard day. Maybe he's been out of the dating pool for quite a while. And we've got all of this that we put onto this. No, come on, ladies, sit back and just put on the, okay, what you got? Look at it. Be straight up with it. Don't be all, maybe they'll like me. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the one. You have lots of time. And in COVID times, you got lots of time. So we
Yeah.
talked about ghosting. So talk to us about, what does it mean to be breadcrumbed?
Breadcrumbed is when somebody is giving you just enough attention, or their time or effort to keep you strung along, basically. So they're just enough to keep you in the game without really committing to anything with you, committing to a relationship, committing to, taking the relationship to a deeper level. So I would say in the older days, we might have just called it stringing along, So that's what breadcrumbs are. They're giving you little breadcrumbs. Another place, though, that I also see it is when somebody mistreats you. Like, let's say you're in a relationship with somebody who, isn't a good person, or they're a narcissist, or they're a hijackal, or whatever it is, and they really mess up and they want to get you back and draw you back in. You might get breadcrumbs there too.
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm sorry I seemed inattentive. Are you kidding? You just outrightly were inattentive. But that's what a hijacker will say. Well, I'm sorry if you thought I was inattentive. They don't take responsibility for their behavior. I'm sorry you thought I was inattentive, and I just wanted to show up today. There's a breadcrumb. Haven't talked to you for 18 weeks, but today I was just having a little quiet time. I was low on supply. I didn't have anybody to tell me I was wonderful, so I'm going to drop in and let you tell me I'm wonderful.
Right,
And
right.
that happens on the hijackal side, as you brought up, Marnie, but the important thing is that it happens on the non-hijackal side, because people in online dating, I hate to tell you, everybody, but you're probably not the only one they're talking to.
Right, right. And it does, I would say, happen with, you could have a good, like you said, a good guy. He's okay, he's fine, but he's just not that into you. But he doesn't know if he wants to let you go yet. So he's sort of keeping you on the sidelines, or just in case, or something comes up and he wants a date with the person, but he has no real intention to invest more. But he could be an okay guy. He just doesn't necessarily want you long term. But you shouldn't accept breadcrumbs no matter who they're from.
Well, I suppose we could make, something good of that. We could say maybe that person will end up in your friend zone. But it's really important what you're saying, because sometimes we take breadcrumbs and we think they're a meal.
Yeah.
And we do that in relationships beyond the dating. We do that in relationships. We do that in marriages. We do that in live-in relationships, where we just, every little bit is somehow suggestive of food. And so therefore we think that, oh, this is good. But it's never enough. And I don't mean it has to be over the top, high maintenance enough. I mean, it has to be reciprocal and balanced, and that we are moving in a direction where we're coming towards each other, at least that.
Yeah, and I hear it from all phases and stages too, like you described. It could just be dating, or it could be somebody that's in a relationship, but they're just not feeling like they're getting what they need. They're not getting enough emotional connection or intimacy, or they don't feel like a priority. They don't feel important, all those things. And so they will sometimes describe just what you said, that they're getting breadcrumbs from their partner.
Yes. And one of our listeners just said, speaking of her significant other, she said, he gave me breadcrumbs and some venom to mix it all together.
Oh,
Now there's a hijackal for
oh
you,
no.
and again, with this hardwired women biology thing, we want to think, oh, there's somebody who really needs to be loved. If he was only loved enough, he'd be secure and he'd be
Yeah.
stable. And I'm just the one to swoop in and nurture him into that wonderful place. No, not your job. Not your job. Didn't break him, can't fix him, don't do it, right?
Right. The other thing is, women will see the little boy inside the man and feel immense compassion too for the little boy that's there. And it's another mistake. It doesn't work out well either.
No,
And
it
they need
doesn't
a
make.
therapist too. They don't need, you know, they
if
don't
this
need you.
if this is describing something that you've been engaged with, you might want to work with Dr. Marni or I, because you don't want this habit to continue, because you're going to continue feeling less than, and you don't want that in a relationship. So I've told you before that I'm talking with Dr. Marni Feuerman, and that you can go to her website. Let me just find it for you here. There you go. Dr. Marni online. And you can download a copy of her book, because it doesn't matter whether you're dating or you're with an emotionally unavailable man. There's gold in here. I've read the book, I'll tell you. The book is called Ghosted and Breadcrumbed: Stop Falling for Unavailable Men and Get Smart About Healthy Relationships. So before we use any more time, because we just got to hit the highlights here, what is a healthy relationship? How would I know if I'm in one?
One of the number one things, and I think most people won't think necessarily about these words, but I like the words safety and security. So you feel that you can rely on this person. You can count on them. They're showing up for you. There's transparency. You know where you stand. There's really clear and effective communication. So also the trust is built over time. Trust has to be earned. You don't just freely give your trust up front. It's built because you're feeling safe and secure with that person. And they're predictable, they're accountable, reliable, all of those words, which sometimes don't sound like the sexiest words, right? Because because love, yes, it has the other part, right? We have to have chemistry, we have to have physical attraction. But I don't want that so heavily weighted that people disregard all of the other stuff that really makes a solid, healthy, long-term relationship, because it's all that other stuff. And if that's not there too, I think the chemistry and the good looks and attraction and all that stuff, it doesn't even matter. It shouldn't matter if you don't have the other stuff.
Well, they can get right ugly to you after a while when they treat you badly, no matter how pretty they are, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I want people to think about if they like the person, not just love, but they like them. They like who they are. They would want this person with their best friend, their daughter. If you can't say that, why are you with them?
Oh, such a good question, Marnie, because I used to say to my mother, she was a supreme hijackal, so was my father.
Oh,
And I would say to her, if I met you at a networking event, I would never suggest we have lunch. I don't like you.
right.
You're my mother. I have a certain amount of love and gratitude to you,
Mhm.
but I don't like you. I do not want to converse with you. I wouldn't trust you as far as I could throw you. None of the things that would make you a reliable participant in a relationship do you embody. you know,
Right.
earlier earlier today, just on your point about healthy relationships, I was doing my Save Your Sanity podcast, and I had promised to do the 3 hallmarks of healthy relationships between adults, but I threw in a little bit from my book, which is Kaizen for Couples. And I had said in there that there are 5 relational gifts that we need to be able to have in order to give. So we have to have them within ourselves, which is an important thing if you're dating. How well do you know yourself? How much work have you done on yourself? Who are you presenting to the world? What do you want? How do you demonstrate your values every day? And so you have to have these gifts, as with any gift, before you can give it to somebody. And they are honesty, safety, trust, respect, and reliability. So you were talking about something very similar. And those things must be there. Don't go brain dead in the hope of falling in love when you find someone who offhandedly disrespects you with their language or their timing or their emotional unavailability or their lack of showing up and touching base with you on a basis that shows interest, right?
Absolutely. And if they mess up or make a mistake, because we're certainly not talking about people who can't mess up once in a while, but that they
No.
make the effort to repair. They recognize it. They feel bad when they've hurt you. Then
And
they
they say
know it
so.
when they say exactly. They rise to the occasion and apologize, or because we know a lot of the people, that are, definitely have a lot of the personality disorder traits. They never apologize, never. They never admit they're wrong. They're lacking in being empathic. They can't sense or feel or attune to your distress. And so
They
that
don't
person,
care.
so then there's no safety. There's no safety that's going to be developed from there. No, they don't. A lot of times they don't, or are incapable.
Well, whether you're capable or incapable, the outcome is you don't care. And if someone shows you that behavior and you say, I feel like you don't care, and they give you a lot of words, and then they continue to give you the feeling you don't care, you know, the formula I give everybody when I'm working with them is ABB. It's the second most important thing I can teach people. And what it stands for is always believe behavior.
Yes.
No matter what the mouth is saying, if the behavior doesn't align with what they say, believe the behavior. Now, there's a piece
Absolutely.
here I want to talk to you, Marni. There's so much we have to talk about. You have to come on and be a guest on the podcast again. But on the back of your book, you say, break free from unfulfilling relationship patterns. And that's a whole lot to take in. You know, that's such a big phrase. How do we even know if we're in an unfulfilling relationship pattern?
Well, I would say fundamentally, you're not happy. You're probably feeling like you're not getting certain needs met. It doesn't feel good to you, or you feel hurt by the person that you're with. So it's certainly a broad thing that can cover a lot of different bases, you know. But I would say one thing I direct people to do is to see what's repairable, see what's fixable, see if you have a partner willing to come alongside you in that process, right? Because I don't want people throwing away relationships that are salvageable either. So if the person's willing to work on it, if you just go to them and say, you know, I'm just not happy, or things don't feel good to me, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's the two of us getting stuck in a pattern with each other. You know, you don't necessarily want to totally blame them, because sometimes it is the two of you, or it's you. You know, we don't really know. We want to kind of parse through that. So I want people to just take time to really sift through this and see if they can make the changes within the relationship. And if they can't, they have to figure out what the next step is.
Well said. I think it's very important. You know, when I wrote Kaizen for Couples, I coined the phrase the hokey pokey relationship, because people were getting married, and I heard people say, well, if it doesn't work out, you can always get a divorce. And so the hokey pokey relationship was born. You got one foot in and one foot out, and that's what it's all about. Right. So instead of saying, I've got both feet in, I'm in it for the long haul, I'm going to fix everything that's possible to fix, and I'm going to notice my part in this, people say, oh, well, I'm not getting what I want, so I'm going to turn and face outside the circle. And that's troublesome. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because love is something that grows if both people want it to grow. Both people, it's mutual. And if you can go to your partner and say, you know, something's just not sitting well, you may not even be able to put your finger on it. You know, I just don't feel like we're developing any emotional intimacy, or I'm not close, or I feel some subtle disapproval or something, or resentment. You know, I need help to figure that out. Will you come along, and can we figure that out together? Your partner, by even showing up in that situation, is saying, even if they don't say all the right words, they're saying, okay, I want that too, right? And it's important, no matter who says, let's get some help, go along, because that's someone showing interest in finding out what's possible in the relationship. And that's a good thing. Now, every now and again, of course, going back to my hijackals, they want to go to a therapist. A hijackal will suggest going to a therapist so they can say they were the one who suggested it. And then they go, and their entire motive is to seduce, exploit, and manipulate and charm the therapist into believing their side of the story. And you went along as their partner, so hopeful that you were going to be heard. And they got it all so that it's the therapist and him or her against the other partner. And so it's very important to notice that the discrepancies I'm talking about are not going to happen the way Dr. Marni was just talking about, that you go because you both want it to improve. You both have a desire to feel closer. You both have a desire for a vocabulary of figuring something out. That's healthy.
And at the very least, even if it doesn't work out with that person, you did the work to figure this out better, to figure out what is my role? What am I doing? How am I contributing to this? Even how am I contributing to the choice I made in this person?
Yeah.
Because like you said, people will leave one relationship. They'll think if they're just trade up for another partner, that everything's going to be fine. And this is why we have a divorce rate that goes up and up for every marriage. Okay, it's still around 50% for the first. It goes to like 60% for the second and 70% for the third. And I think a lot of it is because people haven't done any self-exploration to figure out what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and what was my part in it? You
Mm-hmm,
know, did I go in thinking, "Oh, it's all going to be wonderful because I just want to be loved," or did I go in
mm-hmm.
thinking, "Well, aren't I lucky that this person loves me?" I mean, neither of those
Yeah.
stances are healthy. So, it's a great learning experience that you can participate in. And I want you all to know about the book. There it is at the bottom for you. Um, that is Dr. Marni's book. And you can find her, as I've mentioned before. You can go to her website right there, drmarnieonline.com. So much to talk about. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh, you're welcome anytime.
Thanks. We'll do it again. We'll do another episode of Save Your Sanity podcast and get into this very same thing from that angle. So, you know that Save Your Sanity podcast comes out twice a week for you, and these Facebook Lives are to help you hear a little more from guests that have either been on my podcast, Emotional Savvy, which, as I mentioned at the top of the show, has about 110 episodes there waiting for you. No new ones, but that's a lot. And my current podcast, Save Your Sanity, and you can find it at saveyoursanity.com. So that's pretty easy. Save Your Sanity podcast. Let me be very clear about that. SaveyourSanityPodcast.com. Um, and I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll go back and listen to Dr. Marni's interview on Emotional Savvy and that you will share that with your friends. So, thanks so much for being with us. We are happy that we had people chiming in with their experiences. I see there's one more here. And we want to have this one for sure. It says, "Thank you so much, Rhoberta and Marni. Your insight and guidance into what constitutes a healthy relationship is so invaluable."
That's great.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you so much. And so stay tuned. You just heard Dr. Marni Feuerman tell me that she'd be happy to talk again, so we'll make that happen. And I hope you're here when we do. In the meantime, visit me at For Relationship Help or on YouTube. My channel is called, guess what? For Relationship Help. Talk soon.